This is me 3.5 years ago. Over a decade into my lifting career, thought I knew what I was doing, but wasn't really seeing results. And now this is me now. In the last 3.5 years, I've learned so much through trial and error. And in this video, I'm going to share with you the top 20 lessons that I would go back and tell myself to make this journey a hell of a lot faster and easier. Welcome to the channel. My name is Ryan. I'm an ex-NRL player, online coach, and natural bodybuilder. And this channel is all about finding the most efficient way to help you lose fat and build muscle. Lesson number one, clean doesn't always mean better. In the past, I used to just focus on clean eating and thought that that was how I was going to get the results that I desired. Whereas I know now that I need to be eating to the calorie requirements that are needed to be able to achieve the goal that I'm after. So if I want to lose fat, I need to make sure I'm in a calorie deficit. If I want to grow muscle, I need to make sure that I'm in a calorie surplus. Now, it's not to say that I don't eat whole foods or healthy foods, because I definitely do, but I just make sure that those whole foods, those healthy foods are within the calorie demands that are needed to be able to achieve the goal that I'm after. Lesson number two, some foods are more conducive to your goals than others. As I said before, I used to be a clean eater, and what's the best way to lose fat if you're clean eating? Chicken, rice, and broccoli. I used to just focus on eating chicken, rice, and broccoli, thought that that was going to get me shredded, when realistically, I needed to focus on being in a calorie deficit. And sometimes when you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to get hungry. So instead of eating chicken, rice, and broccoli every meal, I actually found that I feel more satiated, and I'm actually able to eat more by eating potatoes or sweet potato or pumpkin, as these are less calorie dense, and they also make me feel a lot fuller, so it's easier to adhere to my calorie deficit. Lesson number three, daily activity is more important than you think. Prior to the last 3.5 years, I never used to track my steps. And when I was trying to lose fat, I'd have good weeks, I'd have bad weeks, and wondering what the hell was going on. When realistically, some days I'd be over 10,000 steps per day, and then other days I'd be down as low as 2,000. So I was just too inconsistent with the amount of calories I was burning on a day-to-day basis. So now when I go into a fat loss phase, I make sure that I'm tracking my steps, and I make sure that I'm hitting an adequate amount of steps per day to be able to facilitate my calorie deficit that I'm trying to achieve. Lesson number four, training is not about feel, it's about progressively challenging the muscle over time. In the past, I'd never follow a training program. I'd just go in, do whatever exercise I felt like. I'd chase the pump, I'd chase the burn, maybe do a couple of intensity techniques, but I'd never track my workouts over time. Whereas now, I follow a set training program, and I try to get stronger at the exercises in that training program week after week. Lesson number five, training close to failure defines a working set. Now, I used to think that you just did 3 sets or 4 sets for an exercise, and that was how you grew muscle. When I wasn't really wrong. Volume is important when it comes to growing muscle, but what also is important is training close to failure. So when I do my working sets, I now focus on making sure that all my sets are taken close to failure, and I'm challenging the muscle to try and maximize the amount of muscle growth I can get on a set by set basis. Lesson number 6, rep targets are stupid. As I said, I did 3 or 4 sets per exercise, and I always do 3 sets of 10, 4 sets of 10, and all of those sets would be 10, 10, 10. When realistically, especially when you're training close to failure, you're going to accumulate fatigue across those sets. So now set 1 is 10 reps, set 2 will be 8 reps, and set 3 might be 7 reps. Because as I accumulate fatigue, I'm not going to be able to replicate the performance that I had on the previous sets. So this is the main reason why I think rep targets are stupid, and that you should actually be using rep ranges to try and stay within that rep range, especially seeing as though we're probably going to fatigue as we go on through the sets. Lesson number 7, hypertrophy rep range isn't a thing. In the past, we used to think 8 to 12 reps was the optimal rep range. Whereas now we know anywhere from 5 all the way up to 30 reps, as long as that set is taken close to failure, will achieve the same amount of muscle growth as doing sets of 8 to 12. Lesson number 8, doing circuit weights won't make you leaner. When I was in a cutting phase, I used to reduce my rest periods. I used to condense my workout to make it feel more intense and like I was burning more calories, therefore it was going to make me magically leaner. Whereas I know now that I just need to be in a calorie deficit. And whenever I do my resistance training sessions, I need to try and improve my performance every time to make sure that I'm retaining as much muscle mass during this calorie deficit as possible. Lesson number 9, cardio isn't a necessity to lose fat. When I was in a fat loss phase, I used to think that I'd have to do hours of cardio per week, or I'd have to do some type of running session every week. Whereas in my last bodybuilding prep, and I got down to under 7% body fat, I was able to do so without any cardio, and I just focused on hitting 10 or 11,000 steps per day. Lesson number 10, free weights aren't superior to machines. In the past, I would do bench, squat, deadlifts, chin-ups, and I thought that these exercises were the best way to grow muscle. Whereas we know now that as long as you're taking your sets close to failure, it doesn't matter whether that set is done on a machine or whether it's done via a free weight, you are still going to grow the same amount of muscle. So I just focus on putting my free weights earlier in the session, and then I use machines as I get a little bit more tired because they require less coordination and less stability. So it's a little bit more conducive to make sure I'm maximizing every set that I'm in the gym. Lesson number 11, intensity techniques don't equal muscle growth. Instead of training my arms with a whole heap of drop sets, thinking that that's the best way to grow muscle, I just focus on making sure that I'm getting stronger over time by adding some more weight or adding a rep to each of my exercises that I do across the week. And this is how I've seen the best growth I ever have in my arms. Lesson number 12, if you want a big, lean physique, you need to sleep well. Over the last 3.5 years, I've really focused on my sleep, making sure I'm going to bed at a similar time, making sure I'm waking up at a similar time. This has really improved my quality of sleep. And I've noticed that when I sleep better, I feel leaner, I feel bigger, and I'm a hell of a lot stronger in the gym, as opposed to periods of time when my sleep is not so great. And we also know now that if you are sleeping better, you will in fact be bigger and you will in fact be leaner. Lesson number 13, growing muscle takes time and eating heaps won't change that. Whenever I was trying to build muscle, I would just focus on trying to cram as much food into my mouth as possible, thinking that that was the best way to grow muscle. When realistically, all I was doing is just making myself fatter and growing a little bit of muscle at the same time. We know now that even just a little calorie surplus is probably going to be as beneficial as a large surplus, as what is really important is making sure that the body has more energy than it needs on a day-to-day basis, so it feels more inclined to want to build muscle mass. Lesson number 14, you can cut fast and not lose muscle if you know what you're doing. When I used to go into my fat loss phases, I used to be scared that if I ate too little food, that I would waste away and I'd lose all my muscle mass. When realistically, if you're sleeping well, if you're following a high protein diet, and you're making sure that your training is on point, the likelihood of you losing muscle mass, unless you're super lean already, is probably going to be pretty low. And that you can actually go quite fast without the risk of losing muscle mass. Lesson number 15, the squeeze is unlikely to aid with muscle growth. When I used to do my bicep curls, when I used to do my chest flies, I always used to focus on that squeeze and that peak contraction, thinking that that was going to grow muscle. Whereas we know now that it's probably more likely the stretch that is going to grow the most amount of muscle. So focusing on spending more time in the lengthened position as opposed to the shortened position is likely going to yield more muscle growth on a set-by-set basis. Lesson number 16, lifting makes you bound up and tight. I used to always be tight and bound up, had limited range of motion, poor flexibility, and I used to think that lifting was the main reason why I wasn't able to be as flexible and as mobile as I wanted to be. When realistically, I just wasn't lifting through a full range of motion and placing my muscles in a stretch position, which is going to make you more mobile and make you more flexible. Now I feel more flexible or more mobile than I ever have, and I'm age 35. Lesson number 17, overhead pressing is the best way to grow big shoulders. I used to do a lot of overhead pressing with barbells, dumbbells. In reality, they're great for growing the front delts, but if you want big shoulders, you probably want to grow the lateral delts, and the best way to grow lateral delts is by doing lateral raise variations and by doing them frequently across the week. I do 3 to 4 lateral raise variations across the week, making sure that I'm trying to get stronger at those over time, and that's how I've seen the best growth in my delts. Lesson number 18, you should never feel your lower back during an exercise. This is something that I used to believe, when in reality, Your lower back is just your spinal erectors. It's a muscle just like anything else. And if you're in a hinged position, like an RDL or potentially a bent over row, you should be feeling your lower back because essentially you're putting tension through it via the weight that you're holding in that hinged position. And as long as you're adding weight progressively over time, so it's not to expose the muscles to something that it's not used to being exposed to, then the likelihood of injury is very, very low. Lesson number 19, biohacks will never beat consistency. In the past, I used to try and find supplements that would boost my testosterone or make me be able to grow muscle better, when in reality, I just needed to focus on consistent training. And that brings me to lesson number 20, which is staying consistent. Too often, when I used to train, I would train for 4 weeks really well, and then I'd go missing for a week, or I'd just start to miss a couple of sessions or not do exercises that I knew I should be doing. Whereas now, I just make sure that I stay consistent and I try and do the things that I spoke about in this video consistently over a long period of time. And that's how I've found I've been able to get the best muscle growth and best results with my physique. It may take a little bit longer than you initially thought, but you will eventually get there if you stay consistent and if you're doing the right things. Hope this has helped, guys. As always, do those good things, like, subscribe, share. And if you want a more deep dive on how to lose fat fast, I will check out this video here as I go into a step-by-step breakdown of how to lose fat fast whilst maintaining muscle mass. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.